Hi everybody, it's Mike Taggart calling to you from Attainable Flys in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Today I'm going to tie one of my favorite little flies. This is a good use at any kind of year, kind of on a dark day. You can drop it. It is a dry fly, so it's one of those fun little flies to have. We're going to start with an Ahrex 501. So that's an Ahrex 520 or FW 501, and I'm using a size 12 for this fly. The second thing we're going to use is some Semperfli brown, and this is 6/0. I've also got some UTC small copper wire, brown, just generic hackle. We're going to be using that for the tail feather. And this is a Metz brown, sized appropriately for a dry fly for this hook. On this one, I'm going to go a little bit small on the hackle, only because I think it looks better on this one. The other things we're going to use is some Solarez. This is my go-to pretty much anymore. This is thin dry, and I use the one in the brush cap. And with that, let's begin. So we're going to start locking in our thread about a hook eye back. Bring that back. Just to the hook point. Now, for those of you who know me, you know I have to extend my thread on that. I have a little bit of trouble with just snapping it off. So I'm going to get about that much of my brown hackle for tailing. So I'm going to make this about a hook length in size. Catch that in on my side there and just let the torque bring that up to the top of the hook. I'm going to bring this back to about where the barb would be. That'll take me to the end of the shank of the fly. And the reason I say about where it would be is this is a barbless hook. I find that I forget to mash my barbs down when I'm up in the national park, and so if I just tie it onto a barbless hook, then I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to just put a good layer of thread to hold everything down. Bring this all the way to the back, and then sorry about that little bump in the recording. That comes from not being completely repaired. Well, the other thing that I'm going to be using, and I waited for this, is I got this at a fly yard sale some time back. It was somebody was selling some estate stuff, and these are just some brown stripped quills is all it says. So I'm not sure what animal these came from, but they're absolutely nice little quills here. And they were fortunate enough to leave me a little bit of the feather there, so I know that these were in fact hand stripped and they were dyed. So these were a dyed brown quill. I'm going to tie that quill down. I'm tying the narrow end of the quill down. Some people like to tie the fat end down and then use the narrow. I find that it gives me a more natural taper if I tie it from the narrow side. The next thing I'm going to use is my copper wire, and I'm going to tie this in underneath, and in order for me to do that, I like to put it on the back side of the hook, let the torque of the thread just catch that copper wire right on down. And I'm just going to tie that down. So yes, for a little dry fly, this does become a little bit heavy. So it will want to sink for you. If you want it absolutely as dry, then you're going to want to go on ahead and use something like a gold tinsel, but I prefer the copper wire. This gives it a little tendency to sink, so it might just be at the top of the surface or just below the film, and this will give you a good bite. Yesterday, it really tore things up. Now, I'm going to go over this one more time. I'm building up a little bit of a thread base because this is a quill fly. You want to have a good tapered base already before you start. Now, I didn't twist my thread. You can if you want, but because this particular quill is so thick, it doesn't really lay flat. So making sure it's super flat underneath helps, but it's not necessary. I'm just going to wrap that quill around there. You see I'm getting some good ribbing there. Bring it right up to the fat part of the taper and just tie it off. Now I'm going to clip that away. There's a lot of people who said, no, you should never clip to the bottom, always clip to the top. Well, I clip to the bottom, and it's something that I do. It always works. I just have to be careful of my thread. Now I'm going to start wrapping my ribbing on here. That's going to go one full time around. Then I'm going to start my spiral. I'm going to try to do nice, even spirals for the camera here. And you notice I'm putting these spirals on here, quite a lot of them. You know, some people say 4 or 5. I'm going to put like a half dozen or more on here. I'm going to bring this all the way up to that bump in my taper. And then I'm going to give that wire a little extra twist there and then pull back on it. And then I'm going to tie it down with my thread. That helps me to helicopter that off. And again, I'm doing that to the bottom of my fly. That is my personal choice. If I were instructing you, I'd tell you do it on the top. Sometimes you do what you want to do. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to take this and I'm going to put just a little half hitch right there. That's going to hold everything there while I set my bobbin off to rest and get it out of the way. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to wipe this just a little bit with some of the bone dry. And that's going to give it that nice quilled hard body cut look to it. That with the light. Another thing is that the thin bone dry doesn't take a long time with the UV. It only takes a few seconds. I got that on there really nice. Now, bring my bobbin back. I'm going to bring my somehow or another I've gotten my thread wrapped in the wrong direction, but that's all right. I got it back on there. Bring my thread all the way up to the top of that taper. I'm going to take my hackle, pull off a couple little fibers there, and in typical fashion, you'll see I've got one side slightly longer than the other. That's the side that's going to actually make my fibers stand up nice and tall. Get this caught in down here. Now, this is something that Barry Ord Clark teaches, and I never thought about it. You do a couple of wraps in front, a couple of wraps behind, and that stands your hackle straight up. But I'm going to bring this back all the way to here and then stand it up again, because I want to cover the end of that wire. Bring this to the end. Now I've got my thread at the hook eye. I'm going to start my hackle wraps here. Bring this on around. And I'm going to leave room at the hook eye so I can get a head on here. I'm going to come around, behind, and over. And what that does, that locks that hackle right in place. Again, don't shoot the messenger, but I do my hackles underneath instead of on top. Now, I've got a couple of fibers pushing forward here, and I remedy that with a half hitch tool. I'm just going to do a quick half hitch right there and pull all those fibers back to where I want them, which is right there. That exposes that little taper of a head. Now I'm going to bring out my whip finish tool here and just do a real nice, I like a 4-turn whip finish. Give that a good pull. Now I can snap that off. Let me secure my bobbin here. Then I'm going to take my little needle here, and if you're going to be doing precision work, you want to use a precision needle. Balance your hand and just slide that little drop of resin right on there. And give it one more shot with the UV light. And under the UV light, because I'm not using my magnifier to see this, I do see I've got a fiber or two that is trapped up there. So I'm just going to very quickly take my little razor blade and just give this a little nick right here, just to nick that little fiber off for neatness. The fish won't mind, fly tires do. I like to call this one a chocolate mayfly because of the brown color being very similar to chocolate. And it's a result of me using what I've got on my bench to make something really nice. This would represent something like a March brown or any of your darker colored mayflies, possibly even an emergent stone. It's not a very big fly. It's I've tied it on a size 12. I do tie them frequently on a size 14. This is a great little fly. Want you to give it a try. Hope you like it. Thank you very much. Once again, I'm Mike Taggart of AttainableFlys.com.